Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Sophia, and I run events here at the Strand. Before we launch into a discussion of Amanda Lovelace's newest title, Shine Your Icy Crown, I'd like to share a little bit of history about the Strand. The Strand was founded in 1927 by Benjamin Bass on 4th Avenue's Book Row. Stretching from Union Square to Astor Place, Book Row gradually dwindled from 48 bookstores until, after 93 years, the Strand is the sole survivor, now run by third-generation owner Nancy Bass Wyden. We want to thank all of you for your support. Without our loyal community of book lovers, we wouldn't be here today. Tonight, we are thrilled to have with us Amanda Lovelace for the launch of her newest book, Shine Your Icy Crown. Amanda Lovelace is the author of several best-selling poetry titles, including her celebrated Women Are Some Kind of Magic trilogy, as well as her new You Are Your Own Fairy Tale series. She is also the co-creator of the Believe in Your Own Magic Oracle deck. When she isn't reading, writing, or drinking a much-needed cup of coffee, you can find her casting spells from her home in a very small town on the Jersey Shore, where she resides with her poet spouse and their 3 cats. Joining Amanda in conversation is Summer Webb. Avid reader and adventurer, Summer is a literature-focused content creator based in the Great Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. When she isn't reading, you can typically find her attempting to bake too many desserts in the kitchen or spending hours scrolling through TripAdvisor planning her next escape. So, without further ado, please welcome Amanda Lovelace and Summer Webb to the stage.
So, I'm very excited to be here with you tonight, not only because I haven't seen you in over a year, but also because we are celebrating the release of your 7th book.
I literally cannot believe it's number 7, and now I'm working on number 9.
No, number 9, and that's not including the Oracle deck or the journal or any of the anthologies that you've been in. So,
right.
Quite a busy person.
All right. Should I begin with some poems?
Yes, please.
All right. I'm going to read the 2 intro poems for the book. They're sort of like prequel poems, in the same way that Break Your Glass Slippers had 2 prequel poems. Let me tell you a rebellious story. There's a girl who loves fairy tales more than anything, but she doesn't understand why the princess's story comes to a close once she marries. What happens after, she wonders aloud, but no one ever seems to have an answer. Let me tell you an even more rebellious story. There is a girl who loves fairy tales more than anything, but no matter how hard she searches for an answer, she can't understand why there even needs to be a prince. Why doesn't the princess just marry herself, she asks, to which they all reply, but that wouldn't be romantic.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I really did resonate with this collection, and I'm so excited to get to talk about it with you today. So I guess we can just jump right into the questions.
Yeah.
So the first one that I came up with, honestly, is probably the one that I wanted to know the answer to the most. And that is Shine Your Icy Crown is part of the You Are Your Own Fairy Tale trilogy. It's a series of books that are loosely based on fairy tales, I should say. So I wanted to know what made you want to rethink the classic stories.
So my idea for the series, it wasn't to like take our favorite tales and our favorite characters and like make them feminist, because I do think these tales are all in their own way very feminist, especially this one. It's loosely based on Frozen, and as we all know, that's already pretty feminist. My idea was more to take these tales, create my own tales, retell those tales like with the part 1 and part 2 and part 3, make it my own tale, and then explore what those characters or characters like them would be going through, say, if they lived in New Jersey, like on the Jersey Shore, and what they would be going through. And of course, there's always a feminist spin, because that's me. That's how I write. So that's pretty much where my train of thought was.
That's amazing. Do you have a poem for this one?
Yes, I do.
A poem for every occasion.
The princess never excuse me. The princess never found a crown she was happy with. Throughout the years, she continued to dismiss every single one a man tried to place upon her head, even handsome princes with tempting promises of marriage and riches. In return, they called her horrible things, cold, heartless, and her personal favorite, frigid. Eventually, she decided to craft one of her own, a magnificent piece made from ice-like crystals, the very first of its kind. When she was done, the points were so sharp they could wound a man if he got too near. This only made the hatred for the princess grow. She no longer cried about it at night. Instead, she smiled, completely unaffected, and shined her crown until it sparkled. Growth.
I love.
Thank you.
Now, speaking of growth, a lot of this book focuses on the journey to love yourself, despite any obstacles that may arise. What advice would you give to someone who was still struggling with their self-worth?
So I definitely think it's worth it to be compassionate with yourself. I feel like a lot of us have empathy for everybody but ourselves. We really need to be more compassionate and more patient with ourselves. And one thing, like I still struggle with my self-worth, even though I have come a long way. It's something I think you never really stop struggling with. It's like
I
one of those
agree.
constant things that you're growing into. And one thing I try to do is I do gratitude journaling, and it's basically you wake up and you think of things that you're grateful for, and a lot of those things can have to do with yourself. And I feel like, picking one part of you that you're grateful for or that you just think is awesome that day, like you wake up and your hair looks really good. You can be like, I love my hair today. And like just being really genuine about loving even just one part of yourself every day, which I actually had like the perfect poem for this response. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it unless you have a comment before.
Oh, I mean, I totally agree that we're all always struggling with growing to love ourselves, but definitely can't wait to hear the poem.
Big Sister says, show gratitude to your one part of you every single day. If you have legs, thank them for carrying you. If you have arms, thank them for lifting you. If you have a stomach, thank it for filling you. If you have eyes, thank them for showing you. If you have a mouth, thank it for nourishing you. It's time you reconciled with your one and only body.
Oh.
Also, I want to show everyone the illustration because it's one of my favorites. She's drawing.
The illustrations in this book are amazing. Like, they're probably my favorites from any of the other illustrations in any of your other collections.
Yeah, so the illustrator of this book is Janina Medeiros. She did the cover art for the Woman or Some Kind of Magic box set. She has done this series, and she also did the Oracle deck. She is absolutely incredible. I've worked with a lot of artists, and they're all incredible in their own way. She and I, like, we worked together so seamlessly, and I think her art absolutely perfect, especially to go along with these kinds of books.
Right. So that kind of leads me into you guys. I would say that you guys are close friends, but it leads me into my next question, which is the theme for this collection. I would say is sisterhood. It's a recurring theme, not only through this book, but I would say through several of your others as well. But that could mean someone that you're related to, but it could also mean like your found family, friends that have become as close as sisters to you. Aside from family, do you have any friends that you would consider as close as family? And did any of those friends inspire poems for this collection?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because in To Drink Coffee with a Ghost, I wrote some poems about my real life sister because it was a collection largely about my childhood and my relationship with my mom. And I couldn't have written it without talking about my sister. So I felt really inspired after I wrote that. And then around the same time, I was writing a limited self-published release with my friends Trista and Nikita. And that had a big focus on sisterhood too, but a different kind, like a found family kind. And I feel like with those both being things that I worked on, not in the so distant past, I really wanted to explore that more. And I feel like every like big sister response, it doesn't have to be like your sister or a sister. It could very well be your best friend. And I feel like I could hear like any of my friends saying these things, even you,
Yeah.
like any friend. It's just like that feeling of someone who is just completely there to lift you up. And it doesn't have to be blood related or anything like that.
Right. Sort of like a guiding hand to help
Yeah,
you
sort of.
survive.
Yeah, like a spirit guide, but more human.
Yeah. Like the fairy godmother.
Yeah, so in the first one, I had the fairy godmother, and I love that character. But with this one, I wanted to do something more human and more like the big sister in this book, like has her own story. She has her own opinion. She has her own thoughts, and like she just has like this overwhelming love for her sister, even if there's like jealousy, even if, there's tension. And I really wanted to do something where there was a story for both of them, mainly the protagonist, but I wanted her to also have a little bit of a story and not just be this like guiding voice where you don't really get to know her. Or I wanted her to make mistakes too. I wanted her to um, be a big sister but not be without faults or anything like that.
Mhm.
So like when she gives advice, it's because she's been through some shit.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely feel that you did a good job humanizing her as the voice in this collection.
Oh, thanks. Big Sister says, one of the most challenging things you can do is see someone you love making decisions that you know will hurt them. We can speak from a place of experience and try to talk some sense into them, but they have the free will not to listen to us, and they so often don't. There isn't much you can do except be there for them, no matter what.
Now, going back to the question, um, I do feel that this collection really does humanize the voice more so than your last collection. Can you tell me a little bit about the differences between the Women Are Some Kind of Magic series and the You Are Your Own Fairy Tale trilogy?
So the Women Are Some Kind of Magic series or trilogy, whatever you want to call it, it was my very first series, and it was not something that I intended to be a series. I just kind of wrote a book one day and put it out there. And as time went on, I was like, this could kind of be a series if I wanted it to be. So it was never intended to be a series, but it became one. So in that way, I feel like, I didn't plan for most of it to happen. So, Princess is my life story, which is there is some of my story in there, but it's more of a political book about womanhood itself and the struggles of womanhood. And then Mermaids it's a lot like Princess, but from a different angle. And whereas Princess is about child abuse, this is more so about sexual assault from a personal view. And I ended up tying it together in a way that I was really happy with. But going into You Are Your Own Fairy Tale, from the get-go, it was a series, and I got to plan it from the beginning as a series, and it just fell together seamlessly. I knew from the beginning which each book was going to be based on, at least to an extent. I do like to still surprise myself in the writing process, but I knew at least loosely what each one was going to be based on, and I feel like in that way, I had almost like a lot more fun with this one because it was just completely creative in a way that I knew how each book was going to lead to the next, if there was going to be like crossover issues and things like that. So yeah.
Well, crossover issues, that's never an issue for me. You could write a series about literally anything, and I'm sure that I would read it.
Time for a poem?
Yes. Please.
Big Sister says, every girl is trying to survive in a gruesome world that tells her she can never be good enough no matter what she does. Rest assured, there is nothing wrong with you, nor has there ever been. So don't you dare try to change anything about yourself. Anyone deserving of you will see that you're already worth more than any diamond.
It's like I feel like after every poem, I need a moment of silence just for myself. Just to fully appreciate it. So speaking of the last series, The Women Are Some Kind of Magic, we were friends before you even self-published your first book.
Oh yeah.
Which is pretty insane to think about now. But when that first came out, I had no idea that it was going to become the sensation that it is. I mean, since then, you have won several Goodreads Choice Awards. You have also been on multiple bestseller lists. Do you ever feel like your accolades sort of put pressure on you when writing a new series, especially when it's a trilogy versus a trilogy?
I definitely think, winning the Goodreads Choice Awards, there was so much pressure that came with that. And I think I really felt that the most when I was writing Mermaids. I felt like I had to write this beautiful theatrical book when all I wanted to do was write like a quietly healing book. Especially after which was very angry and very vengeful. I
But
wanted
we
to
love
write
to see it.
I just wanted to write a quiet book, and I definitely felt it with that. I got a lot of creator's block, and I also started that book over like 3 different times with like not knowing what to even write about.
Oh my gosh.
But I feel like I did feel that pressure a little bit going into this trilogy, but I already went in knowing that this was going to be a quiet series, and while I was going to cover like tough topics, it was mostly going to be about everyday life, everyday issues, and something that I don't know, was just quieter, less theatrical. And I kind of like I had to have a talk with myself. Like, you need to write the books that are for you, that you need to write, that you want to write, and not worry about these external pressures. Because at the end of the day, I'm a writer. Like, I'm not doing it for the awards. It is certainly nice to win awards and things like that and be on bestsellers lists. But at the end of the day, like, it needs to be about the love of writing for me. And what I write will not always be popular, and then sometimes it will be, and I can't control that.
So you had to have a big sister moment with yourself.
Basically. She always looked up to the strong women protagonists. That is, until the day she finally realized that she is the strong woman protagonist. Determined is she to weave an even better tale, taking the pen back.
Speaking of taking the pen back, can you tell us what you're working on next?
Yes. So a few months ago, I finished Flower Crowns and Fearsome Things, which is a collection based on the idea of making Persephone proud. I explored a lot of dualities about femininity and womanhood. That is actually finished. I wrote that, I think, in a shorter amount of time than I wrote my first book, Princess, which was like a month or two, and I wrote Flower Crowns in like a few weeks. Like, it was in like the height of the pandemic, and I just like I was feeling so creative. So that just came out really quick. And now a few months later, I am working on, and that's a standalone book that has nothing to do with this series. But now I am working on the third book in this series. It is going to be loosely based on Beauty and the Beast, as well as Alice in Wonderland, which was not my intention. Beauty and the
I
Beast
didn't see that
was.
one coming.
But Alice in Wonderland just kind of crept into the story, and I went with it. It is about, first and foremost, it's very much about grief. And it's about perfectionism, especially like being a girl, being a woman in this world. I'm exploring it through that lens. And, you know, always wanting that A, feeling like you have to be the best, socially as well as academically. What else? Oh, and it's also about queerness, which is not something I like, is a part of myself that I never really get to explore. Like, it never feels like the right book to do it in, but this one, like, it just completely is a queer story, and it might be my favorite book in the series yet.
Oh my, I'm so excited. I'm also very excited for Flower Crowns and Fearsome Things. That one did, you mentioned at another event that one was sort of based on a poem from Dragon Hearts, which was the sisterhood book that you did with Tristan.
Yeah. So it all comes full circle. So I wrote a few Persephone poems in that book, and one of the ones that stuck out to me and like I couldn't get out of my head was the one where I wrote, it was something like, who said you can't wear a flower crown and still remain a fearsome thing? And then the title is Make Persephone Proud. And I really just ran with that idea for that book. And while there's a little bit of a loose storyline to it, and it is based on the Hades and Persephone myth, it really just, it took on a life of its own. And most of it is, I just had fun going from like poems about soft femininity to like anger and vengeance. And I just kind of like had fun like trading off one another. And I really hope people have a fun time reading it because it was really fun to write. And that will be out October 5th.
And the name is incredible.
Thanks.
It might be my favorite title next to Make Monsters Out of Girls, which is just like
Big Sister says, when other people choose not to believe in your magic, you must take it upon yourself to believe in your own magic. There will be no greater satisfaction than proving them wrong. And yes, that is a reference to my Oracle deck.
Yeah, so now speaking of the new things that you have coming up, you have been featured in a few different anthologies, including one that's upcoming, I think in May, called Everybody Shines. Like sort of branching off from that, do you have any genres that you would like to explore outside of poetry, or anything that you would like to feel out for yourself?
So I've been mulling over this one for a little while because, like, yes, I would like to write YA books. I would like to write adult books. But at the same time, like, I don't necessarily think it would be a different genre, a different age group, yes. But, like, what I love to write is fairy tales, especially feminist fairy tales. I love to write fantasy. And even if I wrote, like, a contemporary book, it would have some kind of magic in it because that's just who I am. So, yes, technically, I would like to write different age groups, but it would still be magical.
Maybe magical realism.
Yeah.
I'm like, do everything. You can do it all.
What number question was that?
That was 7.
Wow, I think I read the wrong poems. So, okay. We'll skip a poem this time. You can ask the next question.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so as a writer, I'm sure that all I just saw Parker's question. So as a writer, I'm sure that all of your books have like a special place in your heart, but do you find that there is a book that is that resonates more with your readers more so than the others?
Yeah, so in terms of what resonates more with me, I don't know. Like, it's so hard. Like, it literally is like picking a child. But I really feel like Break Your Glass Slippers, like, really is exactly the perfect book that I wanted to write, at least up until this point. But in terms of what, like, my readers love and what, like, is very obvious to me that they all love is, of course, my first book, The Princess Saves Herself in this one. I feel like it just, like, has that first book magic, like, not even just for me, but for other people. Like, I was very creative. And you could tell, like, I had so much to say. So I was saying it, whether it was, like, creative or not. So I could definitely see why it resonates with people.
Right. No, I love Princess, and I always probably will. But personally, my favorite of yours would probably be Monsters. I love it so much, and I don't know why. I love all of them. Like, I could read them a million times. All of my copies are like underlined and highlighted. But for some reason, that one is just, it just really speaks to me. But also Dragon Hearts, which again, the sisterhood book, amazing. I love that one too. But Shine Your Icy Crown, for me as someone who is the big sister, it really did just like I bought a copy and sent it to my little sister, and I was like, do you think of me when you read this?
Like, even for me, like, I'm the little sister, so, but, like, I really find myself relating to both. Like I said, with the big sister, it doesn't have to be you're like you are the big sister or you have the big sister so you can relate to this. It's more like, what would you want your best friend to say to you? And like, I find myself, of course, relating to the protagonist because all of it is based on real feelings I've had, real things I've been through. So I relate on that aspect. But there are also things that, in terms of the big sister advice poems, like, I would want said to me and I would want to say to others if they were going through it. So it's like I'm both of them at the same time.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
The princess who wore a crown of her own making stood tall, her hands on her hips and her chin pointed to the sky. The crowd was completely silent as she began to speak. Whether it was out of fear or out of respect, she wasn't quite sure. Screw the outdated tradition. I don't need to have a king in order to be called a queen. I have always been a queen in my own right, and now I'm officially declaring it. So bow down. And so they did, without question. Her unconventional, happily ever after. And this is the beautiful art.
I love it's just so dainty and pretty. I just love
it.
I know. Someone said that's a mic drop poem, and I think I agree. So writing poetry can be a deeply personal thing. And this is the one thing that I always think about when I think of interviewing other poets, is it can be so personal. And this is what you guys do for a living. So you're doing it all the time. So I can't imagine what it feels like to bear all of those feelings on a page. It has to be exhausting mentally and physically, really. Is there like a routine or a ritual that you do that helps you sort of turn those feelings off at the end of the day?
So I do not write every single day, and like I'm very open about that. I know that's kind of like there's two vastly different opinions in the writing community, and it's like either you write every day and that's what makes you a real writer, or like you don't and you're fine with it, but like other people don't see you as a real writer. But like I don't write every single day, like especially with the kind of work that I do. Like I can't be out here doing shadow work every single day because it would be exhausting. You know, I need to live my life and have some sunshine too. Um, but with that, like I'm always taking inspired action towards writing. Like I always have like a notes app thing going where I'm writing down my inspiration for the book that I'm writing, because I rarely ever write poems that are not like going towards my books, because I'm always just in that zone with the book. And I always have something going so that I can later sit down, like maybe in a few days or whatever, flesh it out, see if anything is salvageable. And that's what I do. So like it's not this overbearing thing, but I'm in a position where like I'm privileged enough to be a full-time author. So like I don't have another experience, because I've pretty much been a full-time author since like the first year I've been an author. So I get to take it slow, and I am so grateful for that, because I don't know how I would do this fast or like let it consume my life, because that doesn't seem like something I could sustain.
Now, okay, this is totally not on the list of questions that I sent you, but what is the longest that it has ever taken you to complete a poem? Is it sort of like an artist, or whenever you're making something, you never quite feel it's finished? Are there things that you would change that you already published?
So there are poems, like if I'm just thinking back to Icy Crown and the publication of it, like it was the day before it was going to the printer, and I was like, no, wait, I have to change this entire poem. There's this poem in Icy Crown, it's a poison apple poem, and I could not get it right for the life of me. And like the day before it was going to the printer, the week or whatever, I was like, no, here it is. Like I finally got it. I like erased the whole thing, and I put a new a new poem. I knew I wanted the concept of a poison apple to make that link between this book and Snow White, but I didn't know how to do it in the right way, and like I finally got it in the 11th hour. So sometimes it takes me a long time to like completely understand what I'm even trying to think with a poem.
I know that you probably don't have this one bookmarked. Can you read that one to us, though? If you can find it quickly. If not, we can go to another one. That's funny to me that you were literally changing it as it was going to the printer. I just imagine, I know this isn't how it is, but I just imagine you like writing as someone's like taking the notebook out of your hand.
I think I know where about it is. I think, yep, here I am. Okay. Big Sister says, be mindful of the apples people try to offer you. Some will be perfectly delicious, but others will be laced with poison. Try not to settle for their toxicity just because you're starving and you think there's nothing better out there for you. The pain you will have to endure isn't worth it. Go on, explore new orchards, and don't be picky about it. You, my dear, deserve only the sweetest things life has to offer.
I just love them all so much. You can read the whole book now. No, I'm just kidding.
Imagine.
No. And do you want to read the other one that goes along with this question, or the original question, which was number 9?
9? Okay. Big Sister says, remember this. It is okay not to be okay. Cry it out, write it all down, scream it into a pillow. Tell somebody. Allow yourself to feel however it is that you feel. Honor your emotions so you can finally be set free.
See, it's just so good. All of them. That's why you can just read the whole book right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, I would love to record the audiobook.
So what does a self-care day look like for you?
So a self-care day. So there's stuff that I do every day, regardless of self-care day. Tarot and oracle cards, they're always like they're my everyday and they are my self-care. So, depending on how soft I need it, it'll be like I'll do an oracle deck instead of a tarot deck because tarot can be at like a little more like Ten of Swords, and that's not what I want. An oracle deck will be more like go outside for a nature walk. And then, of course, lots of coffee, lots of tea,
Donkeys.
donkeys. And meditating is a big part of my self-care. Like when I really need some self-care, I will do lately I've been doing these like guided meditations that are part of like it's an envision like Lord of the Rings Hobbit guided meditation. I have never seen or read Lord of the Rings. I only just started reading The Hobbit, and I did see the first Hobbit movie, so I like had an idea of the world. But something about the guided meditations that I'm listening to, it's like that nature magic aspect that I really love about it. And it made me start reading The Hobbit so that I can actually like read Lord of the Rings.
I was envisioning like the movies, and I was like, that doesn't sound like something I want to meditate to.
No, it's more like they take like the magical aspects of it and they like walk you down like this nature path and you see like elves walking across the path. Like it's more like calm. It's not what I imagine the movies are like. It's probably like fantasy wars and journeys and things like that.
Is it an app that you use?
No, it's on YouTube. They're a pretty popular meditation channel. I think it's like The Honest Guys or something like that. They have like a whole playlist of just Lord of the Rings meditations.
I should definitely try that out. I need a little calm.
You definitely don't need to know anything about The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings because I do, and it was the most calming thing I've ever done.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, awesome. So, do you attribute any authors or books that you read when you were younger to your love for writing?
So obviously I was a lover of fairy tales because I write about fairy tales so much. But one of the authors that really sticks out to me is Holly Black. She's like kind of having her moment now, like with the Cruel Prince series, but I guess this is my moment where I'm like, I liked her before it was cool to like her because I have been reading her books since I had to have been like 12 when I picked up her book Tithe. And the characters from Tithe actually show up in The Cruel Prince, which I'm almost 30 now. So it's wild to read those books that people are reading now and teens are reading now. And they're characters that I knew and loved when I was a teen. And in terms of like poetry, there is, of course, Emily Dickinson. She's my absolute favorite. I especially love how she explores religion and nature and things like that. And more recently, Rupi Kaur. She's one of my number one inspirations.
For sure. We love Rupi. And I think that you are the reason why I first heard of Holly Black all those years ago. I think I actually have a copy of Tithe. No other books of hers at all. That's the only, I've never even read it, but I think I bought it because you loved it so much.
They actually so Tithe is the first book in I believe a trilogy, and they actually put out like a new bound version of the trilogy, like a beautiful cover, so you might want to get that one too.
And still never read it. It'll just be on my shelf with all my books.
Embody the heroine you needed when you were a child, but don't forget to embody the heroine you need now too. Nurture all of you.
See, I just want to like give snaps to all of them. So speaking of who you love, Holly Black, Ruby, everyone, what are you currently reading or loving? Actually, it doesn't even have to be a book. It can be watching, listening, anything.
Well, in terms of what I've been reading, I kind of already gave it away. I'm reading The Hobbit. And I am loving that. I'm sort of doing a combination of the audiobook with reading the text because I have zero attention span. And it's sort of like a long-winded book, even though I do like it, is a little bit long-winded.
I started it, and it was kind of a musical too. And I was like, that's some
yeah,
songs.
yeah, they sing songs, and I'm listening to the audio, so you get to hear it be sung. In terms of what I'm watching, I have been watching The Crown, but I haven't been watching as actively as I was watching it before. It's very interesting. But I haven't gotten to the Diana part yet, so it's probably not as interesting as it gets.
That's the best part.
I can't even think of anything else that I watch. I usually just have YouTube on in the background. I watch a couple of these women, and they clean their house, and they just show us cleaning their house and like organizing, and it's like so calming to me. That's usually what I have on instead of like actively watching anything.
I did that. I'm in a phase right now where I like to watch car detailers. Like power wash like rugs from the car and the seats. I don't know. So I feel you on that one.
When I'm on TikTok, that's what I love to watch.
Car detailing video.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. So it's
Oh,
no.
sorry, what were you saying?
No.
Journey as far outside of your comfort zone as you can possibly go. Evolve so magnificently that you make even butterflies jealous. Take risk after risk after risk. The rebirth. And I have to show this one because I love this illustration with the pendulum.
I do too. I love the detail with the sleeve as well.
Yes, the moon and the stars. It's so witchy.
It is so witchy. I have a dress that kind of looks like that. I'm
Really?
gonna cosplay.
Wow.
Also, what do you hope that readers will take away from this collection?
I actually have a poem for this because it explains it better than I could say in like regular words, and I already wrote it though. Big Sister says, "It's perfectly okay if what you want for yourself isn't what other people want for you. This is your fairy tale, darling. You're the only one who has to live it. So you're the only one who has to be happy with it." And I do envision my protagonist to be asexual and aromantic. So that was like a really important poem for me to write. I am also both of those things. And I wanted to sort of show her as not just not needing a king, but also not wanting one. And I wanted to show that that's okay.
Right. No, I live in the South, and so getting married early is definitely a big thing here. And I've never identified with that ever. So reading your words was like, this is what I needed. And now everybody else can read it too. Do you have a favorite poem from this collection?
Yes, and I was trying to pick between like three of them, and up until we started, I had a different poem, but I think I landed on this poem. Big Sister says, "Break the rules whenever you find the chance. Live a life so fierce, bold, and carefree that people often accuse you of being a witch. You see, society fears nothing more than a woman who's not only aware of her power, but also not afraid to use it in any way she sees fit. What could be more fun than constantly keeping them on their toes?" And we have a little modern witch hat.
As soon as I saw that one, I said, oh, it looks like Amanda's.
I also love the idea of making this book witchy because there's sort of that icy element, although it's called Icy Crown, but it's icy because it looked like quartz crystals look like ice. But I like that idea of that like winter icy element compared to The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one, which was also like witchy, but it was all fire and doom and things like that. So I couldn't wait to write about witches, but like in a different kind of way.
Right, because they're not all the same anyway.
Yeah.
I love the crown on the front of the cover, how it's like the pink crystals.
Oh yeah, thanks. I actually have one that looks just like it. It's my avatar on different social media platforms.
I love it.
There's a bunch of them floating around, but I had found one that looked like almost just like it. Not just like that because like that one has so many crystals on it. But I have one that like looks pretty much like it.
Oh, is that a specific crystal? I don't know anything about crystals. You're the authority
So
on this.
when I wrote it, before the illustrations or anything, it was just like in my head, just quartz crystal. But then I decided on the pink theme, and I was like, oh, there's rose quartz, which is a pink quartz. So I decided to go with that one, and I mean, you could choose to see it any way that you want, but I personally like to envision it as the rose quartz, especially, exploring how the patriarchy affects women, and pink is associated with women, and I wanted to show it like her taking pink back, and I wish I had a poem like it in the book about taking pink, like the color back, because I remember being younger and being like, I don't like pink, that's too girly. But this is sort of my way of writing a poem without writing a poem, to have her love the color pink and have it as a signifier for being royalty and like an empowering thing.
I love that. I mean, you could always write a whole collection dedicated to pink. No, I'm just kidding. So it is 7:45 now, so I think that it is
Oh wow, we got
time
all of those
for-
questions in.
I know, we did a good job. So I think that we can go ahead and look for some questions. So the very first question, of course, is what's your favorite recent read?
So I was just going through my reading list when we saw that question because I never remember what I've just read. But there was a book that I read. I read it in like 2 nights last week or the week before, and it was called Every Heart a Doorway. I'm not trying to say the author's name. I think it's Shannon McGuire. And I had actually had that book sitting on my shelf for probably years, and I never read it. And then I just picked it up one day, and it was such a good book. And the main character is asexual, and I had no idea going in. So like it automatically became a really meaningful book to me. It's about essentially these kids who had gone to magical worlds. I think about Narnia, walking through the magic wardrobe, and then these kids had to leave for some reason or were forced out, and they're sort of in a home where they can help recover and deal with the loss of them leaving their magical worlds. And then chaos ensues, and it was just like it's only like 170 pages, and it was amazing. I recommend that everyone reads it. They could probably sit down and read it in one reading.
Well, maybe I'll have to pick that one up after I reread Shine Your Ice Crown. Okay, so the next question is one that I actually really love. I'm not even sure who asked this one, but it says, what is something simple that feels magical to you?
So as a witch, like a literal pagan witch, like everything becomes magical to me. But the first thing that came to my mind was the simple act of like drinking coffee or drinking tea, and just like not just like the act of drinking it, but sitting down and slowing down and just like savoring your life, because I think that is a kind of magic too, like not even like a literal magic, just everyday magic.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to like just sort of sit there and think and be creative if you want, and just sit there and think.
I love that. Plus, I have coffee every morning, so maybe
From
I'm magical.
Dunkies.
Yes, it's always from Dunkies. So the next question we have is, I love how you keep saying, because that's so me. What has contributed to the most to you being so confident and sure of who you are?
Well, I feel like that it was definitely, again, like the self-worth, like finding your self-worth is a long journey. But I feel like a prominent first step to that journey of self-love, self-worth was finding plus size women on YouTube and watching them. And I feel like seeing them be so confident, and I don't know, like, because I have been plus size for most of my life and I never felt confident. And seeing them not only like just be confident, but tell us to be confident and like just be so loving towards their audience and to themselves, it just really sparked something in me. And after that, like I actually started, wearing clothes that I usually wouldn't wear and things like that. And I just became like, and like that just affected every part of my life. This wasn't just like a physical thing. Writing also helped me with my confidence, like hearing from my readers, like what worked, what didn't, what they related to. It helped me be confident in my own emotions, to have them validated. And so much just plays into it, but those are like some of like the larger aspects of my life that played into it.
Yeah, I agree. As far as finding people with your same body type on YouTube, it definitely did help me as well.
Yeah,
or
one
just
of the
seeing
most
it in public, really, like seeing people own it.
Yeah, one of the YouTubers that really helped me was Loie Lane. I don't know what the username is, but that's her name. It might be Loie Bug, like her actual username. But she was one of the first plus size YouTubers that I found, and she was just amazing. Right now, like she does plus size videos still, and like about like confidence and things like that. But she mostly now does like paranormal stuff, which I think is awesome because I love paranormal stuff.
It kind of feels like you grow together when you find people that are interested in the same things as you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Parker wants to know what our go-to coffee orders are. You go first.
So, as of right now, we usually go to this little local chain that we have in New Jersey called Booskerdoo. And I actually have not been getting coffee lately. I've been getting this orange chocolate tea latte, and I haven't strayed from it since they put it on the menu back in like November or December. So that is mine right now.
Oh my gosh. Mine is definitely coffee. I'm like coffee till I die, basically. But it is just regular iced coffee with oat milk and sugar
Oh,
from
milk, huh?
Dunkies. I love Dunkin' Donuts. So here's another question that kind of goes along with that. What is your favorite flavor and or brand of tea?
So recently I have been drinking from one of my favorite small witchy shop called the Herbiary. I ordered this one tea a few months ago and I drink it all the time. It's called In Peach Mint. And it is a peach flavor with, I think it's like peppermint, but it is honestly, like, despite the name, which is hilarious and like so timely, it is amazing. Like, I can't stop drinking it.
I think that might convert me over to tea. Just the
I think
name.
you should try it. It's definitely for people who don't like tea. Like, and I love tea, but I feel like people who don't like tea would love that tea.
I love mint, but just the idea, the name of it alone makes me drink it. Okay, so Alyssa wants to know, what crystal do you feel resonates the most with you?
We actually talked about this a bit in last night's event. Like, I'm sitting at my desk, which has some of all of my favorite crystals. So we have like a show and tell right now. My amethyst, or at least one of my amethysts. This is like my old friend, the very first crystal I knew about. I love it. Rainbow fluorite. This is another one of my favorites, but like the camera is crappy, so you're not gonna be able to see the colors. Like, it's really beautiful though. It looks like what do you call it? The Northern Lights. It's like purple and green. Like, it's really, really beautiful. And oh, I was like, where's the third one? It's on my finger. Moonstone.
Yeah,
But like,
that ring is so good. I
thanks.
love it.
Of course, you can't see on camera, but it catches the light and it turns blue because I think it's a rainbow moonstone, which is one of my favorites.
Let's see. Alyssa also wants to know, which book was your favorite to write?
Wow. Now that I'm writing like the ninth one, it's like I have to like reach back into the recesses of my mind to think. But I think the most fun to write was Break Your Glass Slippers, and that is like my personal favorite. I feel like the act of like starting a new series, doing something very simple but still magical. I just had the best time writing it.
Let's see. Okay, and it says, what is different about putting together a poetry collection versus writing a story or novel? That is a good question.
So I have not written a prose novel yet. I don't know if I will, but I have written short stories. I have one in an anthology called Disconnected that was about selkies. And then I have one coming out very soon. I believe it comes out May 11th in the Everybody Shines anthology that was inspired by the Starbucks cup that made an appearance in the last season of Game of Thrones. I really like when that happened. I was like, oh my God, that not only is that hilarious, but the idea of having this modern thing in a medieval world, it drove me to write this really fun story about a love spell, but it is also about serious issues like consent and things like that. And of course, it does feature a plus size protagonist. And even though I don't usually write prose, I had a really, really fun time writing that. And I feel like prose definitely, poetry is so, it's so freeing and I can pretty much do whatever I want. But you can't really do that in a story. Like, you kind of have to have a plan and know what you're doing and how the story is going to progress. So I would definitely say it's harder to write a short story, especially in prose like I did. But the emotion behind the poetry can sometimes also be difficult. So there's definitely like pros and cons to both.
So you said that the Starbucks cup inspired it. When are we going to get an inspired by the Hobbit meditation book? No.
Honestly, like, I wouldn't be surprised if down the line there was something like that, because like the littlest, silliest things inspire me, and I just like I run off with it, and I'm like so dramatic about it.
That kind of ties into this question that someone wanted to know. Why you decided, they said, why did you come up with the icy crown? Like you said, just based off of Elsa and Frozen?
So the idea of the icy crown, so I don't think Elsa, she doesn't have like an iced crown or anything like that. I want it to be like, we already have Frozen. I didn't want to like rewrite Frozen or like tell the same story. I wanted her to have like a unique crown. And I actually, before I wrote Icy Crown, like I have another, aside from one that looks like the one that's on the cover of this book, I do have a quartz crystal crown. And I was like, oh my God, like I love how that's not ice, but it looks like ice. And I love crystals. And I wanted to write a witchy book. So I kind of just went with it. The book is also partially inspired by, of course, Snow White, and also a little bit of inspiration from Narnia and the White Witch. And she actually has an ice crown, but again, I didn't want to. I didn't want to just like off her head. I wanted to make my own crown and my own story. But they were definitely inspirations for the story.
Okay, and then let's see. What advice do you have for someone who is still looking for their creative path? From Emma.
Well, I definitely think it's never too late to find your creative path. Try experimenting. Like I'm still finding different ways that I like to write. I'm looking into like starting painting. Like there's so many creative outlets that you can find, and you'll be finding them all throughout your life. And my biggest advice is if you're thinking about it, just do it, because you're probably going to love it, even if you're not great at first, because that rarely ever happens. But even if you're not great at first, if you're being pulled toward it, then you're probably supposed to do it.
Okay, so the last question that we have is, it says, has cow body, is that so, cow body like me grown on you? Has cow body like me
I think they mean cowboy like me.
Oh, I was like, wait, what?
Oh yeah, it's Cowboy Like Me. That's that's a song on the new Taylor Swift album. So no, it hasn't. It is not only my least favorite Taylor Swift song, but it's probably my least favorite song ever. And I'm sorry. Like I'm sorry. I don't like it.
Yeah, cow body like me.
I want
Her
to like
name.
it, and maybe it will grow on me, but it's just not. It's not for me. And I love Taylor Swift, and you probably all know that.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you, both of you, so much for a wonderful, really poetry warm, reading heavy event tonight. It was really a delight to listen to you. Is there anything you both would like to say to our audience before we sign off for the night?
So thank you so much for coming. You were all so awesome. I hope if you haven't picked up Shine Your Icy Crown yet that you will, and I hope you love it. You don't have to read Break Your Glass Slippers in order to read it. All of my books can be read completely independent of each other. So yeah, I hope you love it, and you were all awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, our wonderful audience, for joining us. Thank you, both our wonderful author and our wonderful moderator, for joining us tonight. If you haven't already purchased your copy of Shine Your Icy Crown, there is a purchase button at the bottom of your screen that you may go and purchase at your leisure. And we are going to sign off for the night. Everyone stay safe out there and have a good rest of your night.
Bye.
Bye.